Hello. It is already the third episode of Proof Talk, a place where we sit down with insurance and InsurTech professionals to hear about their expertise, experience, and different opinions. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome Tony Tarquini, who is a 35-year veteran of insurance and technology, founder of 5189 Limited, named after his personal milestone, co-author of the best-selling InsurTech book, and one of the most recognized voices on digital transformation in the industry. Tony, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Elvita. Welcome to you too.
So, 5189. What an interesting name for a company.
Yeah, I didn't intend this to happen, but when I'm regularly at conferences and meeting people, and I have my little lanyard on the front, and people look at it and they go, "Oh, that must be a Lloyd's syndicate, is it?" Because obviously Lloyd's syndicates all have numbers rather than names, and virtually every time that's what people think, it's a Lloyd's syndicate. So I have to tell them, no, actually, this is not a Lloyd's syndicate. This is my own personal consulting company. And then the question obviously then comes out, so why have you called it 5189 Limited? So I explain that there are two things that I do in my consulting business. One, I do a lot of conferences. I chair conferences across the world, really, across Europe and North America. I also do a lot of work with vendors and software companies selling into the insurance industry. That's my background, 35 years of effectively doing that. So I know what works and I know what doesn't work. Why? Because I did the things that work right, and I've also done the things that don't work. So I know from personal experience of how those things work. And when I went to name my company, I was starting to think, well, what shall I call it? And you have great ideas, and then you go to register the company, and you find out that name's already gone. All the good names have gone, right? So I have to find something else. So then it occurred to me that what I was talking to these vendors about is about how you maximize your success in this industry with the resources you've got. Now, some companies are large, they've got big financials. Other companies got great product. Others got great people. There are about 20 or 25 different variables that they should be looking at to work out how they're going to make a success of their time in the InsurTech world. And it occurred to me that was very much like an experience that I had in my younger days when I was an international track and field athlete. So I used to run 400-meter hurdles for Scotland and Great Britain. And I thought, well, actually, what is it that you're really trying to get to? It's the best possible outcome. Well, the best possible outcome for me was the personal best time that I ever ran, which was 51.89 seconds. So that's how the name came to be, and essentially what I do within 5189, and it gives me the opportunity to explain that to people when I meet them for the first time. So it's something that's personal to me, and it's all about how do you achieve those great outcomes, the best you can possibly achieve, with the resources you've got.
Perfect. And then how do you actually translate that into the work you do?
Okay, so it's very much about looking at the company and examining their go-to-market. So what are they saying? Why are they saying it? So many companies are spending huge amounts of time and money and effort getting to insurance executives to talk to them about their products. And when they get to that first meeting, they then break out the marketing deck. Let me show you my PowerPoint. It tells you how many offices I've got in how many countries and how many staff, and this is how much money we've earned, and this is da, 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 da. And the insurance execs are sitting there thinking, yeah, come on, get to the point. I've got an hour here, and I've taken time out of my busy schedule to listen to you. To the point where insurance execs are now telling me I'm avoiding taking meetings with InsurTech companies because they just do this to me. They don't do their research. They don't work out what my problems are, and come to me with a solution to the problem that I was dealing with 5 minutes before I walked into the room, and I'll go back to you after I've finished. And they just want to sell me something that they've got, which they want to sell me, as opposed to they want to solve my problems. So I work with the organizations to have a different outcome. Normally, the outcome is, thank you very much. That was really interesting. I'll get back to you. They get out of the door as fast as they possibly can and tell their PA never to let the person through the door again. So you never hear from them. The right answer is that you get into that meeting you press their hot buttons to say, I know you've got this problem, and we've solved this problem for somebody who looks just like you, maybe one of your competitors in the industry who had exactly the same problem, and we can solve that problem for you. And the insurance exec goes, yeah, that's what I want to hear. So it's all about not saying, look at me, I've got this beautiful baby, look at my beautiful baby. It's actually, how can I help you and your organization? And it is partly personal and partly corporate. How do you solve the corporation's problems and help that individual to be a star within their organization? And most organizations, I've got to tell you, are very bad at doing that, because they've been brainwashed as to how great what they've got is. They've fallen in love with their solution. They haven't fallen in love with their problem.
I see. So it kind of going backwards when you present the solution rather than looking at the problems that it might solve.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. All right. So we passed this first touch point. They understand, they see that you know the problem. But then again, many companies get stuck in the pilot purgatory.
Yes.
Why? How come?
Well, that is true, particularly at the moment, with the invention of AI. Well, the invention of AI, it's been around 40 years, but the AI going mainstream. What we see, and I've seen it over 35 years, I've seen it again and again and again and again. Let's do a pilot to see whether it works. Yeah, okay. And the vendors hate doing pilots because it costs them loads of money and they get virtually nothing out of it. And I've always said, if you're going to do a pilot, you've got to have really clear road forward. If this happens, then we're going to do that. If this happens, blah 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 blah. So it's all set out, as opposed to, well, let's do a pilot and sort of see what happens, which is what most pilots in the insurance industry are. And particularly with an AI, it's done on a small data set, and there's not really a specific, measurable, smart outcome. We all know the acronym SMART, outcome that can measure and say, yes, it achieved what we wanted to do. Now we've got a plan on how we will roll that out and scale that back up. So most organizations they go into it not knowing what they want to get out of it specifically and measurably. They can't say whether it's achieved it or not, and therefore can't decide whether they go into production. And once they go into production, scaling it up is a whole different issue from doing a pilot. So many organizations get caught in that pilot purgatory and are unable to move up and put AI into their business or transform their business on a scalable level.
Would you say that AI could help actually with setting these goals and these SMART goals and seeing more clearly into the future? How valuable would it be? Does it even make sense to go and make this pilot in the first place?
To be honest with you, Elvita, I think it makes it more difficult. I think that insurance loves to have silver bullets. Oh, what's the next great thing that's going to change my world? We've been through just so many iterations of these wonderful technologies that are going to come along and solve it. And AI, I think, is on a much bigger scale than all the rest. The potential is massive. There is absolutely no doubt. It is great technology, and it is technology that is going to change the face of insurance. How we get there is a whole different question. And if you get so clouded with the, oh, look, a beautiful baby over here, look, yeah, let's follow that one. You're never going to work it. You've got to work it through logically. You've got to work both on the business side and on the technology side to make sure that you're really clear about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and how you're going to take it from a concept in a discussion you're having through to fully implemented and scalable. So, for example, a lot of people think, yeah, what I'd like to do is just to take this AI solution that somebody's brought to me and plump it into my claims process. No, there are very, very few situations where you can just take a point solution, put it into your existing process, and it adds value. Well, it will add value. Most of the time it will add value, but it will be incremental value. if you really want to get benefit from AI, you've got to make it transformative. And to make it transformative, you've got to make sure that your workflow and your processes are re-engineered to get the benefit from AI. So that's not a trivial task. First of all, you've got to have the people who understand how to do that. Secondly, you've got to have the willingness within the organization to rework those workflows and processes. And you've got to have executive sponsorship. And if I'm really honest with you, most senior executives within insurance companies do not understand what AI is all about. The number of times I've heard people say to me, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was very clear on the business case, went to the board for the budget. And before they would approve it, I had to go through an education exercise to explain to them what AI was, how it would work, what the outcomes would be, and all the other things associated with it. It was an education exercise for those senior executives for them to approve the budget for the thing to go ahead. So there's a lot of work, a lot of pre-work, a lot of activity that needs to go on before you even get to implementing the technology. And if you're going to do it right, you've got to make sure that you've got so many of the challenges that are going to come up as you go through this process already identified and dealt with. You know, you've got to have your RAID, your risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies absolutely nailed down. So whether it be regulation or ethics or anything else that might come up and create a problem for you, then you've got to make sure that you've got it sorted out. I had a senior executive from a UK insurance company on stage with me about 18 months ago, and she outlined a situation with a tier one insurance company in the UK where they decided that they didn't really understand where the best use cases were for ChatGPT. And they said, right, what we're going to do is give ChatGPT to everybody in the company and get them to play with it and find out where we could get value. So they put it on everybody's laptop and waited to see what the result was. Well, the result was two members of staff decided that they would use the interconnection to all the internal systems to find out how much everybody was paid. Didn't go down well. Did not go down well. So they had to take it off everybody's laptop and reevaluate how they were going to go about doing this. So, you know, you've got to be very careful about how you do these things. You've got to think, where can this lead? What could happen? And be very sensible about it. And one of the big problems is that there's not enough people who understand the technology and the capabilities of the technology to be able to start planning that through. So the vendor is likely to have some pretty good ideas because they will have implemented this hopefully before. They'll understand a lot of those issues, and you know they've got to be able to identify how you're going to implement this to get maximum value. And if you're really looking for transformative value from something like AI, you've got to, as I said, you've got to rework the processes and use it as an embedded technology as part of what you do right across the board. And that's the difference between incremental value and transformative value. And the ones who are really going to make it work are the ones who are really doing that work. And it's not an inconsiderable investment in time and resources and activity. So it's going to come from the top, from the board, a board decision to do this. Otherwise, you're just going to get little pockets around the place which are implemented, maybe scaled up to a certain degree in one particular use case area, but it's really not going to help you much as a business.
So the two main sides that I strongly registered here, it's this human aspect of the technology and transformation in the company, and this business structure being ready and having the capacity of actually handling this transformation. So about the people, I am very interested. So the decision comes from the board, but I assume that the challenges of the practical and manual work that I think majority of the AI tools currently target, they come from the bottom up. And I am very interested, how does the communication in insurance industry look like for it to actually come together? Because from what I have read or listened to, insurance is quite hierarchical. it's quite a
Yes.
strong hierarchical structure. So, do you have an example from your experience how they communicate this or come to this decision that they actually need some technological improvements?
So you're right. Insurance is quite a hierarchical marketplace. But the fact is, you can't do transformation top down, just top down. You have to do it bottom up as well. That means you have to win not only the hearts and minds of the board to get the money, the resources, the time, and the decision that you're going to re-engineer the company. Because transformation in its purest form is the definition of it, as opposed to change. Transformation is you're transforming more than 25% of the organization, right? So that's a very significant thing. The board need to be bought into it, and we all hear the stats and the stories that the biggest reason for failure of any transformation program is lack of support from the board,
Yeah.
and that is almost certainly true. However, in order to make it achieve the results that you set out for in the first place, you have to go bottom up. You have to get the people who are going to be operating this to buy into it and want to do it. So I have seen so many projects where the board's all completely bought in. Yeah, we're going to do this. This is what we're going to do. Push, 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 push. We're going to implement this new system and it's going to be great. And the people below go, yeah, sort of, maybe. Not too sure about that. I'll just carry on doing what I was doing before, or I'll do a workaround. And okay, this new system has been implemented, so I have to use it, but I'll drop out of it over here and I'll use a spreadsheet, and then I'll come back in again and do something here, and all these workarounds and changes and things because that's what they feel comfortable with. And they either deliberately or inadvertently subvert change, as opposed to people being in a situation where they really want to do that. So a lot of my consulting work was done with this model in mind, and it's very much, you've got to take people out of the very best people, hopefully, in and the particular area that you're working on. Take them out, get them bought into what you're doing, and get them to report back to the people that they work with. Hey, this is really good. This stuff is really working. It's going to make our life different. And there is an emotional journey of change. It's very well documented by psychologists and in a lot of business consulting. And it starts off. Sorry, I'm around the wrong way, but for a graph. But it starts off. Yes, we're going to do this, and everybody gets very, very excited. And you get to the top of this curve, and everybody's going, yeah, this is wonderful. And then they go, oh, hold on, that means I've got to change, or I've got to do something difficult or different, and it starts, oh, I'm not too sure about that. And it goes into a big trough of, oh, now we've got all this stuff coming at us, working late nights, and we're doing this, and it's hard work, and and it go down into the trough. And there's two ways it can go from the trough. Either it can turn up and go up again, and you can achieve success, or you carry on going down, in which case you have project failure. And that bottom of the trough point is where you have to work at it. And what you want to do as it's coming, hopefully as it's coming out and going up, you want people to move from the idea of, yeah, I like the old system. I feel comfortable with that. It always sort of worked, and do I really don't want to have to change to, well, I'll have a look at it, to, oh, well, okay, it looks so, actually, I like that bit, and okay, actually, I think I could buy into this, to, you know what, this is actually better than the old system. You know what, I don't think I ever want to go back there, because this is great, and I want to tell everybody else here. So you have this emotional journey of change, which goes like that. The interesting thing to know about the psychology of that is that there are actually not just one emotional journey of change. There are four. There's the one for senior management. There's the one for, or the leadership team, if you like. Then there's the management team below them. Then there's the transformation team. And then there's the staff who are operating it. And that it's all the same basic shape, but it's all out of sync. Sometimes it's faster and goes more shallow and up, and sometimes it's peaks more and goes back down and whatever. So as a transformation person, you need to understand where that particular team is likely to be in that part of the transformation program right at the moment. And do you need to work with them to think about they're down in the trough now? We need to work with them to get back up, or are they becoming disillusioned? What do we need to do with that? And if that requires you to sit next to them at their desks and work with them and get the people who are the evangelists to come in and buy into it and then transfer that back, then so be it. I once worked with a great transformation director. He had to implement a technology, an underwriting workbench, and he got the buy-in of the whole organization, supposedly. They signed up, ready to go, started doing the technology implementation, and he wanted to work out who he was going to do this with. There were various heads of lines of business, and he called them all in and said, "Look, guys, I need a volunteer who's going to start with this." And almost like an army lineup, everybody else stepped back, and one person was a bit slow stepping back, so he became the volunteer. So he said, "Right, okay, we're going to do it in financial lines," and everybody's going, "Yeah, okay, good luck with that, and we'll leave you to do all of that." But what he did was he made sure that there was a show and tell every week on the work that they were doing. They would have their experts come in, they would work on something like that, change that around there, change the process here, do this, and then they would see within a couple of days, they would see that work coming back. Oh, right, that's what I said. Yeah, I can see that on screen now. And then other people would start to drop into these show and tells from other lines of business. They go, "Oh, okay, how quickly did you do that then?" "Well, it took 3 days to do that." "Oh, right, okay." And then slowly, one by one, Mick started to get knocks on the door to say, "Excuse me, I know we weren't that keen on being the first ones to do this, but could we be the second line of business to roll out this technology? Because we like what we're seeing." And then eventually they were all said, "We want to be the next one. We want to be the next one." So the expectation was not this is going to be a failure or this is going to be a problem. It's actually they got the jump on us. Now they've got the technology and they're rolling it out and they're very happy people. So we want some of that as well. So there's a lot of psychology involved in all of this. And it's working with people from the bottom up as well as top down. And if you can't get that, your chances of success are severely limited. Does that answer your question, Elvita?
I think so. I am just in awe how much it has changed. I think even the idea of a transformation team or a transformation director must have been not that old in the industry, right?
I think there's always been people who are dedicated to doing that, and that's their skill set. I think there's more of a focus now on understanding that if you're going to change your organization, and let's be clear about it, change is the new normal because it's constant change now. We
Yeah.
can't just put a system in and it will last for 30 years. That used to be the case in the insurance industry. I knew of one system that lasted 40 years, but you don't want to go there, and that's not the case anymore. So you've got to have people whose skill set is change, and that's what they're good at. And there's some people who are good at that, some people who are not, as in all walks of life. So you've got to choose your transformation people very carefully.
Yes, and now that you mentioned briefly that there's so many factors to look at, and I'm remembering there was this change management model that compared the change to how people go through grief and so many other things and skills that you're mentioning. So what does it mean to the talent? So currently, I'm writing my thesis, and the opening line is that insurance has been shielded by so many things, and they were not fearing of increased pressures of, let's say, new competitors, or their products were so complex that they didn't have to change. And now, with all these changes, it is happening, and it is simply not ready for it with the legacy systems, like you said, that can last 40 years. What does it mean for people coming into this new changing industry, and what people or talent is needed in this industry currently for this?
Well, there are two things there I'd like to address. The first one is the propensity for the industry to change. So it used to be that an insurance company would buy their policy admin system, and it would be a massive, bulky, heavy duty thing that would be there for 20 years. As I say, I came across one that they retired after almost 40 years. Rather worrying that their company would do that, but they did it. Okay. Didn't cost them an awful lot of money, but towards the end it did, because they just couldn't get the people to maintain it. The fact is that insurance companies are run by people whose entire working life is spent managing risk.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're presented with a situation and the low risk thing to do is to do nothing, then that's what you'll do. It worked last week. It worked last year. It will work next year. Yes, it will. What they're not seeing is all of those things that are changing in the industry around them, for their competitors, their customers, their distribution channels, and all the things that are happening out there, which make that legacy a problem. And by the time you get to the point where you want to be able to do something about it, you're well into legacy debt. I know from talking to recruitment people, for example, that very often when they're recruiting for CIOs for insurance companies, the first question that they get asked, are you planning to replace your administration system? And if the answer is yes, I think I'll pass on that one. They're not interested in even starting the conversation, because it's such a risky thing to do. It's the heart and soul of the organization. So against that landscape, you've started to see a separation, or like a two-tier architecture. So there's the back end office policy administration systems and claims administration systems, which are doing their accounting and the administration of the products. And then you've got the front end systems, which are very much more customer facing. So the two systems are completely different. One needs to be stable. It needs to be changed very rarely. It needs to be scalable. It needs to be solid. The ones in the front need to change regularly. You need to respond to all kinds of different things. It needs to be able to be agile, data driven, all kinds of different things, completely antithesis of the back office system. So you've seen that sort of two-tier architecture starting to arrive. That makes change easier, because you're creating that front end piece where a lot of the change actually happens, more malleable and more able to respond to the changes that happen. If you've got the right technology in there, then you're going to be able to respond to that change. To be honest with you, the back end accounting systems, well, the Venetians worked out double entry bookkeeping 2000 years ago. The debits are on one side, the credits are on the other, and it hasn't changed an awful lot since then. So you don't want to change your back office system. You do want to change your front end system. So that sort of transformation piece is becoming a bit easier. I think there's also the question of the people side of this as well. And I'll touch on that. So I spend a lot of time chairing conferences, and very often when the talent question comes up, I ask the question of the audience, and there can be several hundred people in the room sometimes, who grew up wanting to work in the insurance industry? And all the hands stay down. No, that's not true. There's normally one person at the back who put their hands up, and I say, was your mother or father a broker? Yes, yeah. So you took over the family business. Fine, you're excluded. But nobody else in the room grew up wanting to be in the insurance industry. I did actually come across one chap from Norway who, at the age of 5, decided he wanted to be an actuary, which he did become an actuary. I, at the age of 5, didn't even understand what an actuary was, but John definitely did. So it's very rare. Most people fall into this industry by accident. I did. I remember coming into the industry, and a very well-known person in the industry said to me, you're going to do well in this industry, and you will still be here for a very, very long time. You'll do well. And I thought, what a strange thing to say. I work in technology, and I've worked in different places. 35 years later, here I am. So he was absolutely. In fact, I rang him up when he retired, and I said to him, Martin, do you remember what you said to me? And he said, yes, I do remember what I said to you, and I was right, wasn't I? So, but most people are like that. They fall into the industry by accident. They realize A, it's a really nice industry. B, it's one which is quite stable. They can do very well in it. Um, but we are missing the opportunity to recruit people who are top level talent and attract them because they want to work in an exciting industry like this. I once stood up on stage doing a session about cyber insurance, and the conference organizer was at the back of the room. She was listening to everything that was going on, and this chap was talking about claims and how claims are worked and cyber and blah blah blah, negotiating ransomware, etc. So after everything happened, we were talking about the session, and she said to me, "I never knew insurance was so exciting." So you've got somebody who's negotiating with Russian cyber gangs and working out how much they're going to play and what their playbook is, and they have to be off-grid people because they don't want them to know that it's the same negotiator who's operating here, who is operating in the previous place, and knows what the playbook is and how to get them down from 40 million or 50 million down to 5, because if they knew that, they would change the playbook. And yeah, this stuff all goes on in insurance, and you hear all the stories about the wonderful things that insurance has insured over the years and paid out on over the years. It's part of society. Society would fail if insurance wasn't here, and frankly, most insurance companies like to pay out on policies. I when I'm at dinner parties and people ask me, what do you do, Tony? I tell them I work in the two most boring industries in the world, insurance and computers. And they say, well, I can't be. They either say, oh yeah, that's really interesting. My grandmother's ill, I need to go, or they say, it can't be that boring. Tell us about it. And I tell them, about insurance. I tell them about technology, and they have a perception that insurance is a marketplace that never wants to pay out and da da da. And I say, well, actually, insurance companies want to pay claims, and the reason they want to pay claims is because if there are more claims and they pay out on them, the premiums will go up and they'll make more money in the longer term. If there's no claims, there's no reason to have insurance, so they go out of business. And I thought, oh, I said, it's totally counterintuitive. So insurance is run by risk managers. It's something which is counterintuitive a lot of the time. Decisions take a long time to be made. When I've worked in a corporate world, I've had to explain to senior management where we've worked in different vertical markets. Insurance will take a lot longer to sell into. You go to a banker and say, look, throw a couple of million at it and see what happens. They'll go, yeah, okay, we'll have a go, see what happens. And if it fails, well, it fails, we'll move on. Insurance, no. You want me to throw 500,000 at it? Whoa, hold on a minute. I need to be absolutely clear. This is risk. So I need to be clear on what the outcomes are going to be. I need it virtually guaranteed for me that outcome will happen. So it's a different mindset. They have to be much more clear on what the outcomes are. It's career limiting sometimes. It's a blame industry, I've got to say. Unfortunately, it can be career limiting to make mistakes. So you have to work with that. You have to understand that psychology, and you've got to work with the industry you've got. And the vendors in the industry have to work with that as well. They have to be cognizant of the fact that they've got to go through a lot of stages with insurance, which possibly they wouldn't have to go through with some other industries.
All right. That was quite a fresh view. That was amazing. And so this risk aversion, it is fundamentally the culture that this industry is also standing on. So I am just summarizing in my thoughts that so this has to be accounted for when approaching these companies and working with them. And it's also something we have seen that sometimes companies say, yeah, we're going to do it internally. There's so many risks. There's so many. I think virtually sometimes it feels like if you're doing it in-house, I might be wrong, please correct me. It feels like it doesn't cost as much. Or maybe in some ways you don't see the money leaving the company. So it feels like it doesn't cost anything. There has been
So
this company.
when people look at these kinds of things, they'll say, right, if there's buy or build, which should do? Oh, if we build, we've already got all the people. We just put them on the project, and it doesn't cost us anything. Oh, over here we've got licenses to buy, and we've got to keep paying for the support every year, and and it's comparing apples with cars, not even another fruit. Completely different scenarios. And when you look at the long-term cost of build, it's normally higher than the long-term cost of working with a vendor, almost in all cases, because insurance companies are good at insurance, right?
Yeah.
Then actually not very good at IT. My experience is that most external solutions are better quality because they have to be in order to persuade people to buy it, and multiple organizations to buy it. If they don't have that, and have the scrutiny of multiple buyers looking at it and saying, yes, I like that, that works, as opposed to let's build something internally and we'll just all get our heads together and work out what it needs to be. Not too much scrutiny on that. You can end up going over here and then back over there, and all kinds of issues around it. So yeah, there's always an argument in certain cases for build, but I would say where the world is going is somewhere in between, which is buying the right tools to do something, the right structure and the right platform, and then build out on that platform, as opposed to, so you're buying something internally which creates the fundamentals of what you need, and then you just put your specifics on top of that. That works an awful lot better than pure build or pure buy.
But then let's say I'm an insurer with my system that I love, but it's a legacy system. Let's say it's maybe not 40, but 20 years old. And I would like to change, but everything would have to be changed, right? If you change the core itself, it is a huge change and a huge commitment of the decision makers. So how to approach that less scary in a way, or in a smarter way? Not the acronym, just smarter.
Well, I think the answer is that you're looking at the idea of, oh, just leave this in place and there's no cost to that. There's a massive cost to that. So not making the decision to change has massive implications which are hidden. Making the change, you've got hard numbers and hard work and everything else clearly laid out. So you have to be clear, if you're going to not change, what is the cost of doing that? And over a long period of time, that can be that, for example, you can't get programmers who are programming in the language that it's written in. And that's one of the big ones. I can remember sitting with an insurer, and I asked him, what was his biggest problem, and he called me. This is the CIO, called me to his office window. He said, "Look out over there, my staff. What do you see?" And I, okay, various people. He said, "That desk there, all the guys sitting in there have retired at least once and come back. One of them there's only 4 of them, and one of them is leaving next week finally and will never come back. They're all programming COBOL. Sorry, it wasn't COBOL. It was a programming language, which you probably never heard of. But anyway, they'd written their admin system in this programming language. And he said, there are so few people who can program in this Power Builder, it was called, that I can't find them anymore. And those guys are my programming team. They maintain my system. If they go, I have nobody to maintain my system. So putting yourself in that precarious situation, massive risk, massive issue. How do you get yourself out of it? So you've got to decide to change. Now, whatever that may cost and whatever that leads to is going to cost you money, but it's not as risky as staying where you are.
I think it was called, was it expropriation? It was actually one of the risks in corporate governance, that you have everything built on this one thing that only you do, so you're stable, but then once you leave, everything goes away.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
There's another
So what you
person
want to
factor
know
here.
is what has somebody else done? Because there are only 3 sales questions. What will you
Yeah.
do? How will you do it? And where have you done it before? And they'll always ask a vendor those 3 questions. And the third one's the most important. Have you done it with an organization that looks like my organization? And what was the outcome? And would they tell me, would they be a reference site and tell me all the good things and all the bad things that happen? Because there's always good and bad. Will they be honest with me? So that they have the confidence that actually these people have done this before. They're going to lead me into a project which is going to work. So, that all then comes down to the big word in our industry, which we haven't used yet, but it's really, really important: reputation. This whole industry is run on reputation. So I have 3 sons, right? And my middle son works in insurance. When he came out of university with his politics degree, decided that he didn't know really what he wanted to do. And I said, "So, what are you going to do with your life?" I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I said, "Well, I think you do really well in insurance." And he said classically, "I would rather stick needles in my eyes than work in something as boring as insurance." So he decided he wanted to do a gap year. So he had to find himself a job. Funnily enough, ended up working for an insurance broker on the high street. Did that for many months and then went off, did his traveling, came back, sat in the same seat in the kitchen. And I said to him, "So what are you going to do with the rest of your life?" And he said, "Actually, insurance could be quite interesting." Long story short, he's now doing extremely well in a tier 1 insurance company. But the point is that he said to me, "Dad, what do I need to know about this industry?" And I said, "It's quite simple. There's only one thing you need to know. Reputation precedes you every time you walk into a room, every meeting you have. People know who you are, they know what you've done, and they know whether to trust you or not." I said, "The number of times I've been with senior execs in the insurance industry, talking to them about a solution, and they said, 'Where have you done it before?' 'Oh, we've done it over here with George.' And they go, 'Oh, with George, right. I know George. I've known him for 25 years. If it's good enough for George, it's good enough for me.' Or alternatively, 'Oh, you work with George, do you? Okay, George screwed me on a deal 25 years ago, and I've never forgiven him for it. I know that guy, and if you work with him, maybe I'm less interested.' Reputation is vitally important. It takes you a lifetime to construct it and earn it, and it takes 5 minutes to lose it. So when you're in those negotiations, one of the resources that I talk about for vendors is your reputation as an organization. Can you even get through the door? Or is it, "Yeah, I worked with you previously at a different company. Now I'm here. We're not going to do the same thing again." Those kinds of things happen all the time. Or, "Great, I worked with you over there. Now I'm going to bring your solution into my new company because I saw what we did there and I want to do the same thing again." I've seen that many times as well. So reputation, very, very important.
Yeah, it is quite a relationship-based industry, isn't it?
Yes, and if you work in London, if you go into the London insurance market, all around close to the Lloyd's building in the city, you've got pretty well every major insurance organization in the world. I once had an American colleague with me, and we walked down Leadenhall Street from the Lloyd's building down this particular street, and I said, "Well, that's Aon here and Willis there and Allianz here and and all these different insurance companies." And he got to the end of the street and he said, "My God, man, I'd have to fly over 15 states to see this number of people." I said, "Well, that's the beauty of it." And they move from company to company, but they'll move 200 meters down the road because the office is down there for the new company. They drink in the same coffee shops and the same bars. They're related to each other, married to each other, whatever. And those relationships are all there. And with LinkedIn, sometimes you go on there and you see people. You're like, "Oh, they're connected to him or her, or that they know them." "Oh, so do you know?" "Oh, I know them very well. I've known them for 20 odd years." Da 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 da. So that's an industry which is very incestuous. Everybody knows each other, and what everybody's doing is also known by everybody. So that adds or detracts from your reputation as to how you behave and how people view you. So it's really important, particularly in the London market.
Hmm.
But then I said that I was at a conference last week where they had people from literally around the world. and I did the conference the previous year, and I had people come up to me during the conference from the States, from Europe, from Australia, coming up to Tony, lovely to see you again. How are you? Da, 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 da. So it's a global thing as well.
The relationships are important, and I completely understand how reputation is also. I think this is such a great talk. I would love to continue, but it is already, I think we're actually over time. But I think it's so lovely. And there is still one last question that I would like to wrap up with, because it's more future leaning. So if we go back to this more specific part of technology that is AI, how do you see AI in insurance in the upcoming, let's say, decade? What is going to change? How do you see it?
So I've been 15 years or so ago, I was working with a company implementing real-time analytics and decisioning, which was, a form of AI. And that was having quite significant effects and results on the operations of the insurance companies we work with. Here we are, like 15 years later, and suddenly AI is the big thing. But there are so many different flavors of AI, and so many different ways that AI can work. I think specifically agentic AI is going to make a big difference in the insurance industry, and I think that's where insurance companies should be looking in the first instance, and making sure that they're clear on how that AI will work within their organization. And I suspect a lot of it is around customer service, and customer facing activities. Like I said, two-tier architecture, keep your back office stuff solid, but the agility of the front office to work in a different way and constantly change. Agentic AI is likely to be a massive force within that. What that means in terms of people, I think you've got to have human in the loop when it comes to this work. Certainly when it's then exposed out to the customer. I think you've got to think about where that changes the cost dynamics. And I was talking to somebody fairly recently who's some considerable experience of this, was identifying the fact that if your hourly cost for your people goes from 65, I think it was dollars they were working on, $65 an hour down to $25 an hour, areas of insurance which were not viable previously because it was too expensive to run suddenly become viable. So we're not just talking about taking an existing pie and dividing it up differently, winners and losers. You're talking about a bigger pie where lines of business can expand globally. We're not talking just tens of millions, we're talking about billions potentially of premium income, which wasn't financially viable before, will become financially viable using things like agentic AI. So it's not going to get rid of the humans altogether. It will get rid of certain activities that humans, frankly, most of the time don't want to do. Rekeying and number crunching and reading through long documents and all those kinds of things. AI is really good at that kind of stuff. And if you work that into your processes and your workflows, I think you've got a far higher performing organization, and one where the humans who are working there are getting far more satisfaction out of the work that they do every day. That's where I see the world going.
That is amazing. I am betting on that. I'm not big on gambling, but I would bet on that.
I think that would be a good bet, Elvita.
Well, thank you, Tony, so much. It was such a pleasure. I learned a lot, and in such a practical and human way. And truly, that's where our value stands. We can analyze, we can think, we can make decisions, and we don't need to do all the manual work that other tools can be more efficient with. So with that in mind, thank you so much. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And well, have a great day and success.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.